Cool. Well, today we're sitting down with Adam Webb.
Yeah.
I don't know who the we is. I don't know who the audience is, but I think it would be fun just to sit down and interview Adam Webb a little bit. I don't know. I don't know too much about your life. I know you're a big deal here at Sunder
Oh, thank you.
because people come and see you, and you go and travel places. The experiences that I've had are at like company parties or dinners, and every time you talk, I'm like, wow, that's an amazing story. And so I was like, we should sit down and pin down some of these stories and record them and share them with people.
Sure.
So the background for today is it's not how to be a great salesperson, even though I'm sure indirectly we'll get into that, or how to be a good leader. I think I'd like to know about your life and
Cool.
and hear all about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so I have some simple questions to start.
Mm-hmm.
First, if you had to describe yourself in one word, what would it be?
I would say stoked.
That might be the perfect word. So tell me why stoked.
One, I love feeling stoked, and two, I feel stoked a lot.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably just a good way to describe me.
So of last year, how many days did you feel stoked?
How many days were there last year?
365 days. Let's say like in a year on average, how many days are you stoked?
Out of 365 days, probably 365 of them.
Yeah? Really?
Yeah. I try and be stoked every day.
Wow.
No, I'm sure there's some days I weren't stoked, but
Wow.
if I'm down, I don't stay down for long.
Okay, cool. Even in the winter you're stoked? Like,
Yeah, winter activities, snowboarding.
wow.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff to be stoked about during the winter.
I feel like-
Snowmobiling?
Yeah? Do you own a snowmobile?
No, but I wind up going a fair amount.
Do you ski or snowboard?
Snowboard, yeah,
Yeah?
yeah.
That's awesome. I feel like I'm usually only stoked in the summer because it's like in the winter there's nothing to do.
Summer's cool.
Yeah.
I did 14 years of like having no clue what Utah summers were because I was like traveling for sales.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so last summer was like my first summer here, and summer's pretty rad. I was stoked on summer.
Are you from here?
No, I'm from San Diego.
Oh, okay. That's probably
Yeah.
a good first question. So you're from San Diego.
Yeah.
When did you move to Utah?
Just after my mission, so I was like 21.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Do you still have family in
My mom
California?
and my sister and cousins.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Right on. You go down a lot?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so next question. What kind of hobbies do you have?
Ooh, I got a lot of hobbies. We can start with the ocean. So anything in the ocean, free diving, scuba diving, spear fishing. That's probably my favorite.
That's so cool.
Boating, anything on a board, skateboarding, longboarding, snowboarding, surfing. And then recent hobbies, dirt biking.
Yeah. We're
We're gonna
about
get
that
Hunter a
yesterday.
dirt bike so we
That's
can go
right.
ride. And then this year paragliding is a new hobby.
Cool.
Yeah,
What's rank order your hobbies you just listed? What's your favorite one?
probably spear fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
You got a lot of experience with that though, right?
I actually only started a few years ago. I didn't do it growing up,
Oh, wow.
but it just combines like everything I love. You know, the ocean, fish. Like I love eating fish, sushi, sashimi, all that. So that's probably. I think that'll always be my favorite. I love spear fishing.
Wow.
And then probably skateboarding. I did that so much growing up.
Oh, cool. Do you still skateboard?
Yeah, I built a half pipe in my backyard
You
recently.
did?
Yeah, or had one built.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a big metal ramp. So I still love to skate.
You built one or had one built?
I had one built.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a guy in Springville that's a welder that builds metal ramps.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's so cool. Your kid skateboard?
I'm teaching them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the coolest trick you can do on a skateboard?
Oh, I was always like weirdly good at heel flips and pop shove it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so like I could throw just sick heel flips, catch them on the bolts, throw them down staircases, like, and it's kind of a more obscure trick too. Like everyone kick flips, but I was always like really good at heel flips for
That's
some
sweet.
reason. Yeah, I think they look cooler.
What's the worst injury you've had skateboarding?
You know, I've been pretty lucky injury wise. I broke my ring finger one time skateboarding. I just like fell and rolled on it,
Shoot.
and then it was broken. But that was it. Like I haven't really had any super gnarly injuries
Uh,
skateboarding.
Let's say across all of your hobbies, what's your worst injury?
probably spearfishing a couple years. The first time I went like deep sea, big game fish spearfishing, I fired the gun, which is massive. It's like so much bigger than the gun you use just shore diving. And you're supposed to brace it, and I didn't. And it flew out of my hands, and the butt of the rifle hit me in the mouth, and it broke my maxilla and bent my front 4 teeth. Like, it bent them backwards and pushed them in.
Oh, my
Yeah, so I had to get
gosh.
oral surgery, and these front 4 teeth are dead. So that was pretty gnarly. And I was like 40 feet underwater when it happened, so
Oh.
holding my breath.
Do you brush those teeth, or are they like super teeth that you don't have to brush?
I mean, I just don't brush my teeth in general, so.
It's a separate issue. Dang, that's crazy. So your wife, does she keep up with you with your hobbies?
Like, does she do them with me?
Yeah.
She just kind of watches, and prays. She doesn't really do any of the hobbies with me, which is understandable. I don't expect her to.
Yeah, I don't know too many people who can do all of those sweet things. So, okay, so if I don't, but if I had $500,000 in cash,
Yeah.
what would be the one thing you would buy?
Ooh. Well, honestly, the first thing I would do is send my wife on like a sick trip.
Okay.
Yeah, because I put her through the ringer professionally with work the last few years. So I would just send her on the most epic $100,000 trip of her life.
Nice.
For me, and just like for fun.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'd probably go buy like one of those just sick souped up Can-Ams, just something to go rip sand with.
Yeah.
Every time I do wind up out in the dunes, I'm like, those things are so cool. And I sold in the desert of California for a lot of years.
Oh, yeah.
And so a lot of people will have like not that expensive houses. They'll have like more in toys than like the value of their home.
Wow.
So I got to see a lot of like pretty sick toys. I'm like,
Wow.
those things are kind of cool. So maybe I'd buy one of those if I was just to go splurge some money.
Wow. Okay, so you'd send your wife. Where would you send her?
Maybe like to Italy. Like, hey, grab some girlfriends, go to Italy. Here's a budget to just go buy some designer clothes, do whatever you want.
So
I would love it. That'd be my dream.
there's something dangerous about that. So I went to Italy with my wife.
Okay.
And we were in Florence.
Okay.
And like I'm a pretty conservative guy when it comes to like buying things on vacation.
Yeah.
And Florence is known for their leather and their fur.
Yeah.
And she saw this coat, and it's like a Arctic fox, like
Yeah.
Bond villain coat. And she was like, I really want it. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just like walk around and think about it. And then it was like, she was like a little kid who like wanted that toy. And like, seriously, like 2 hours later, she's like, I really want that. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I won't ever go back to Florence because it was like a $700 coat. And I was like, oh
Nice.
gosh. So anyway, buyer beware, but.
That's awesome.
Okay, so tell me, what is your favorite food? And then your favorite movie. Let's do those two.
Ooh. Favorite food would definitely be popcorn.
What?
Yeah, popcorn.
That's not food.
Yeah, it is. What do you mean?
I mean,
It's corn.
it is. You're right. It is a
Yeah.
vegetable, technically, right?
Yeah, it's vegetable.
It's fried vegetables. Okay, popcorn.
Yeah.
And then
Are you okay with that answer? Are you trying
mean,
to challenge it or?
I'm just not a popcorn guy, but I should just accept it.
Yeah.
So you'll watch what movie when you eat your popcorn?
Ooh. I like any movie where like the hero, taps into these like deep wells of motivation that's rooted in like, this passion or this thing that's bigger than them, and then they go do like something impossible. Like Gladiator or Cinderella Man. Maybe I just like Russell Crowe. Mel Gibson's movies like Braveheart.
Yeah.
Those movies always get me stoked. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah, man. So of those movies, what's number one?
I mean, Braveheart's pretty freaking good.
Yeah.
That scene at the end where he's like, freedom.
That's my favorite gift.
So
to send.
epic. What?
The freedom gift. I send that all the time. Yes, that's good.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know. I also like movies like that are based on like a crazy concept, like Matrix, Inception,
Some sci-fi.
Interstellar, like just kind of a crazy cool concept where you're like, whoa, it just makes you think a lot.
Yeah.
So honestly, maybe The Matrix like my favorite movie of all time. That one's sick.
Which one of the three?
Like the first one.
The first one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the original. Did you see the new one?
I don't know. When did it come out?
It was like Christmas this last year.
I don't know that I did, actually. I should probably do that.
Yeah. I don't know. I've heard mixed reviews, but yeah, the original Matrix is like phenomenal.
It just kind of blows your mind where you're like, whoa, I love that.
Yeah, introduces a lot of really interesting concepts about reality and especially as we move forward with artificial intelligence. But
yeah,
that's awesome. Okay, so now let's get into more of the nitty-gritty, as they say in Nacho Libre.
Nitty-gritty.
So on your bookshelf in your office, you have several books and copies of several books. So tell me about the most impactful book you've ever read and why.
Other than the Book of Mormon and Other Testaments.
Yeah, this was a trap, and you should have answered correctly. So,
probably Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Okay,
it was the first like personal development book that I ever read, and it just totally changed my paradigm. Like it just gave me a new way of thinking, and then that put me on a new course that like affected my life completely.
Okay, in what way? What were the big takeaways?
Well, at the time, so my parents divorced when I was young, and I was staying at my mom's and then also at my dad's, and my dad never really had like money consistently. So the place where I was staying with him was pretty meager. He was actually homeless for a lot of my life, but my mom would still let me like stay with him. So
wow.
I'd go stay with him, you know, in his van if he was like living in a van, or there were times he lived in like he lived in a pool shed for a while or a storage unit, stuff like that. So I got to experience that just like having really like no money, and you know, my upbringing, you kind of just assume that reality is like what it is.
Yeah.
So I never had like big ambitions or thought that like I was a person that could ever accomplish great things, just because nothing in my environment like was communicating that to me. But when I read Think and Grow Rich, it had these concepts like whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And the whole idea was like, look, external circumstances don't matter. They're irrelevant. The only thing that matters is what you believe in your head. And I believed that and internalized that and was like, okay, so it doesn't matter the situation I'm in right now. I can go become phenomenally wealthy and I can accomplish great things because I have this brain, and that's just how the universe works. And Think and Grow Rich turned me on to that line of thinking. And then that line of thinking affected the rest of my life.
Yeah, it's like a switch turned on and never turned off.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I want to dive into this. So how old were you when you read this?
12.
Oh, you were 12.
Yeah, I was super young.
Who gave you this book?
My older brother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So does your older brother have this same ambition and thirst for life as you?
Yeah. So he's like 10 years older than me.
Okay.
And so he was kind of already on his journey, you know, when I was young. And so he was like, oh, my younger brother, like I'm going to mentor him and coach him and just like share stuff that I think is awesome with him. And at that point in his life, that was that, like Think and Grow Rich, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Like he was into that stuff. So he just shared it with me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, okay, how many siblings do you have?
2.
Okay, so your older brother and who else?
Older sister.
Older sister.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Your older sister, what is her path look like generally?
She's in Southern California, mom of 3.
Okay.
And just keeps busy and yeah.
Okay, so I'm interested because my father-in-law and my grandpa have a similar story where they started from nothing. They caught some vision. Somebody gave them an example.
Yeah.
And they took that and ran with it.
Yeah.
And I'm so curious about what that looked like step by step for you. So you're 12, you get this book, you're like, you know, the world's a possibility.
Yeah.
So what action items did you take? I mean, you're 12.
Yeah.
Was it school? Was it church? Was it like, walk me through that.
So there was no like, there was no specific action at that point in my life. It was really just this belief. Like I just started to believe. It was like planting a seed of belief. And that belief was, I will be wealthy someday. I'll become a millionaire. I'll be successful. I'll do great things in life. So that belief just kind of sat in me for, you know, my whole childhood and teenage years, and then started germinating, during my mission and then after my mission.
Wow. That's unbelievable. Just the power of belief in your life.
Yeah.
What do you think realistically is the upper limit to what anyone can accomplish based on where they start, if any?
There isn't one.
Really?
Yeah, there's no limit.
What about so to play an appropriate amount of devil's advocate? What about your IQ? Like what factors does that have?
Yeah, there are some limitations. Like a quadriplegic, it probably isn't going to go set the world record for the sprint or something like that. Like,
sure.
Or someone who's mentally deficient is probably not going to be the next Steve Jobs. So I guess there are some like realities. If you're dead, you can't.
Yeah.
If you die, you can't run a successful company. Like there's physical realities, but outside of very few limited things, I'd say there's not any limits. And I'd even, I would guarantee there's an example of someone somewhere who became a quadriplegic who went and accomplished incredible things.
Yeah. Yeah. This kind of comes back to, I've heard you say this before about spearfishing.
Yeah.
About holding your breath.
Yeah.
And you say when you're ready to come up for air, you're only like 50% capacity before you pass out. Is that right? Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah. If most people were forced to hold their breath until they actually passed out, when they were at the point that they were like sure they were going to die, just like mind in absolute panic mode, freaking out like I am on the brink of death, they're really only about halfway through their breath hold. And that's for people that have done some like apnea training. The average person, when they think they're about to die, they're maybe only like 10% through their breath hold.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so you caught a vision when you were 12. You realized that you didn't have to listen to these pseudo limitations that others were putting on you, or maybe even yourself.
Yeah.
So what's the goal? What's the end goal? What do you want your life to look like when you're 65, 70, 80?
Yeah, I just want to create as much value for other people as I possibly can before I die. Okay. I just feel like it's a sprint. Every day I wake up, I'm like, how do I create more value for more people?
Okay, so I see a couple of rabbit holes I want to go down.
Yeah.
So one, how would you define value? And how do you know that you're achieving that goal of value? And then two, we've talked a little bit about in private about like burnout and productivity or overcoming boundaries. So how do you, and you said it's a sprint. How do you wake up every day and say, okay, today I need to do as much as I can? So maybe walk me through those first two questions.
Yeah. So how do you know like if you're creating value?
Yeah, how would you define it?
Yeah, I mean, I would define creating value as improving the quality of other people's lives, making them better, making them more effective, making their jobs easier, creating happiness in their life, getting them stoked, right? Best part about being stoked is sharing the stoke with other people.
Yeah.
So that's how I define it. And most of that is focused on Sunder, right? Like that's my profession. That's what Sunder pays me to do, is to create value for this organization and for the people that are here. So that's primarily what I spend my time doing. But then I also spend my free time just trying to create value everywhere. That's why I have the books that I wrote. That's why I spend time trying to post stuff on social media and stuff like that, is because while I'm working on my business, that's like my full-time job, I'm also working on myself to become the best person that I can be, because that's the foundation of creating value, is like who you are as a person and your human capital. And then also just looking for opportunities.
So the foundation of creating value is starting with yourself.
Yeah.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
So you can't help other people if someone's like drowning, you want to help them, but you're in the water drowning next to them, you're useless, right? You can only help them if you're standing on the dock, if you're strong enough to pull them out, or if you have a life preserver or something like that. So I think it's every human's moral responsibility to maximize the potential that God's blessed us with. And if you constantly and consistently try and maximize your potential, eventually you'll find yourself in that type of position relative to other people. Not that you're better than them, but you've accomplished things that they want to accomplish. You've figured stuff out that they want to figure out. You have answers to questions that they have. And now you're in a position to give in a way that's actually meaningful and beneficial to them.
Interesting. So the engineer in me, and this will segue into my second question, the engineer in me always wants to know precisely when you have reached the optimum atom or the optimum hunter. Like, how do you know you've maximized yourself or you've worked on yourself sufficiently?
Well, it's an eternal pursuit. Like, literally, we'll never maximize in this life. That's why it feels like a sprint, because I just don't want to die or be close to death and look back and realize, oh man, I only accomplished or was actually pursuing, half of my potential. I don't believe you'll ever maximize it in this life anyway.
Interesting. So sounds like there's an appropriate healthy fear of, I don't want to meet this futuristic me that would have been better than me right now. How do you know you are the best you? Like, do you take time to, I don't know, in some form or another, meditate on what can I improve on? How do you bridge the gap? And then how do you do that across time? And how do you not get like overwhelmed or burned out?
Yeah, I'm just systematic about it. It doesn't take a lot. Like, I believe everyone should be spending 20 minutes every day on personal development, reading some personal development content, listening to it, whatever it is. Like, if everybody just spent 20 to 30 minutes every day outside of whatever they're working on with work, outside of whatever their immediate responsibilities are, outside of whatever fires have to be put out right now, just focused on building their human capital and becoming better, just 30 minutes, it's incredible what happens over time. Like, you don't even realize it. You just kind of wake up one day and it's like, wow, I'm in a position to like seriously help other people because of this time that I've spent learning and growing.
Really? Okay, so that's a cool idea. So you say you systematize it. You take 30 minutes a day for personal development. You read or you listen, and that over time puts you in a position that you didn't anticipate where you can help other people. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, that's just one factor.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah.
That's a really cool idea. So what ideas have you been learning about in your personal development? Like what books have you been reading? Or
So finance is a big one. So if you kind of think of a bell curve, right? And how much if you use the population of everyone in the U.S., how much does everyone know about investing and finance and building wealth? If you were listening a half hour a day to finance content, investing, real estate, personal finance, Robert Kiyosaki, Brandon Turner, like consuming that content, it's not going to take very long for you to move through that bell curve and wind up in the top 1% of the whole population in terms of like investing knowledge. So I spent a ton of time on finance, real estate investing, use that to my personal benefit to build wealth, and then taught it to all of my reps. One of the things I'm most proud of is of all the years that I did, direct sales and leadership, to my knowledge anyway, I don't have a single person that worked with me that's a homeowner that's not also a landlord. So every single person that worked with me that owns any real estate also owns investment property.
Wow.
And that in part was a function of this process, me building myself up in the area of like finance and wealth, applying it, and then creating value for other people by teaching it to them so that they could not just make money, but build wealth.
So I want to go back and tie this together. You're 12 years old. Your brother gives you a book. You catch a vision about what can my life be like, and you attain it.
Yeah.
And then the coolest thing to me about this is, and you're investing time in yourself. You take 30 minutes a day. You learn some really valuable information, and then you go and affect other people. I mean, how many people do you think you just affected based on? You said these people own real estate and they're landlords? How many
Yeah.
people? Roughly?
That I work with that now own property.
Yeah, roughly.
Oh, I don't even know. I can tell you, I've worked with so many people over the years, and that content too, I push out through social media. So I've done free.
Oh wow, yeah.
I've done free webinars where it's like, hey, just hop on this Zoom call and I'll just tell you about the properties I own and the numbers, and you can ask questions. And like,
Wow.
I do Finance Friday just to try and remind people every Friday, like, oh yeah, like personal finance and wealth building is important, you know?
Wow.
So I couldn't even tell you, like,
So you're
hopefully it's thousands and
thousands.
thousands. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say thousands. Like that estimation seems right to me. And so then you're helping thousands of people who then they're gonna have kids, and in
Yeah.
you know, in theory, then you go help tens of thousands of people,
Yeah.
all because somebody gave you a book.
Yeah.
Like that's such a cool idea.
Yeah.
The domino effect of positivity and being stoked.
That's it. It's all about the Stoked. Hey, that's why I give people books. That's why all the books on the shelf, there's like 20 of each of them because I give them away.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a cool thing. So, all right, I want to turn our thought over a little bit to tell me about the hardest thing you've ever done and what coping mechanisms that you've used to get through it.
It's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if there was like just one thing. I tried to always make my life hard, especially, professionally. I felt like if it was hard, then I was pushing and I was becoming a better person. I was maximizing my potential. So, when I was in direct home sales, I personally performed in the top 1% for 13 years straight.
Wow.
And that was super hard, but that was by design. So, they say that sales is the lowest paying easy job or the highest paying hard job, and you get to pick. So I made it the highest paying hard job. But I would probably say I can't think of like a single, just one thing where it's like, oh yeah, that one thing I did was so hard. But my 14-year career in door-to-door was very hard.
Yeah.
But I, grew a lot through the process.
That kind of reminds me a little bit of a podcast that I listened to between Lex Friedman and Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan, he's kind of an iconic guy, controversial at times. This last year in particular, there was a big effort to cancel him.
Yeah.
For things he had done in the past,
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to get into that part, but Lex Friedman asked him, what have you done to help get through this? Because it seems like it's been a nightmare. And one of the things that Joe Rogan said, which I thought was interesting, and it's similar to what you're saying, is he intentionally has incredibly difficult workouts. He makes his workouts incredibly hard.
Does he do them in the morning?
I don't know. But, I mean, he's a, MMA, UFC fighter,
yeah.
and so tough guy. And so he's like, I chose the really hard things. So then when other things came up, they didn't seem as hard.
Yeah, definitely.
So this idea of you choosing your career, making it difficult,
Yeah.
might have like counteracted other things that normal people would have been like, oh, that's hard. It's like, oh.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I tell people all the time, like, well, people have asked, what's the best way to prepare for, like, to succeed in direct-to-home sales? And the best answer is, like, just go do hard things. Like, just go fill up your tub with ice water and just get in it. Or
Have you done that?
Oh, yeah, I love cold plunges.
Really?
Yeah. I put one up in my cabin just recently.
Really?
Yeah.
Where do you have a cabin?
It's east of Heber, so like south of Park City and
That's
out
cool.
towards Daniel Summit Lodge. Yeah.
That's cool. So you did 13 years of door-to-door, you said, or 14?
14 total, yeah.
14. So what was just really quick, what was the best door you ever knocked, and what was the worst door you ever knocked?
Ooh, good question. I've had some worst. I've had a lot of worse doors. You have some pretty gnarly experiences. This one time, I knocked this door. She had cement steps, a bunch of steps going up. So, and then like a platform and a railing. I knocked the door. She opened. And it was pretty high up, maybe like 12 feet. And as I was talking, I kind of leaned on her railing. And as I leaned on her railing, she started saying, "Don't lean on the railing," because it wasn't attached. It was just kind of sitting there. Anyway, the whole railing fell off. It was a giant, like, fully connected iron railing. It just goes toppling off. and I went toppling off. I fell off this like 12-foot platform and went down into her bushes below. Like I just fell into them. And then I came like crawling out. I made this giant hole in her bush. I came like crawling out. I'm like covered in leaves and debris. And she's just like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" And then I look up at her. She could see I'm okay. And we both just start like laughing hysterically.
Whoa.
Yeah, we're just dying. And then she's like, "Do you want to come in?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And then I went and sold it. So that might have been like the worst store and then also the best store. Yeah.
Wow. In a world where you could have sued her and made more money
Yeah.
selling a solar system, you were like, let me sell you solar.
Yeah, but I could probably think of, oh my gosh, a billion stories like that. The doors are a good time.
Wow. I have a lot of respect for the ability to go and knock doors and talk to strangers about solar. That seems hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gnarly.
Oh man. That's amazing. All right. So actually now I would like to turn it over to like some high level existential questions.
Yeah.
So, and this comes in the basis of this guy, Lex Fridman. I don't know if you listened to him at all. So he's an MIT researcher. He's got a really interesting like podcast, gets into a lot of technical details. And one of the questions he always asks is, what is the meaning of life?
Yeah.
And so how would you define the meaning of life?
Love and serve other people.
Simply put.
Yeah, and the love part is just what we were talking about. The serve part is what we were talking about. Create value for other people.
So, okay, let's get into this little rabbit hole. The goal of service, at least I think, and you tell me if I'm wrong, is to help people.
Yeah.
What's the best way to help a person?
To create value for them, and to teach them.
Can you, and maybe let me get into a little bit of a tangent. So one of my big questions in life is, how do I effectively help people?
Yeah. Because
I feel admittedly pessimistic, unfortunately, about helping people.
Yeah.
And maybe I could be persuaded. Because I also served in missions. I spent a ton of time really trying to help people. And like I met wonderful people, and I feel like the act of service changed me, like permanently.
Yeah.
So there's a massive benefit, and I felt like there were times where my heart was just broken.
Yeah.
Where I would go and really try to help.
Yeah.
And I would see there was an effect that took place.
Yeah.
And then for one reason or another, or someone was mean to them, then they stopped doing the things that I thought would be helpful to them. And so I felt like the way that I could help people is just being a good husband and being a good dad. And maybe I focus too much on that, and I don't think externally. So how do you help people on a large scale?
Yeah, I validate that. I mean, I was the president of a nonprofit here in Utah for 10 years, and we would do international charity work. And there were definitely cases where, some families, one family in particular, I came to the realization, like, we did a big project for them. We built them a new home. And as I got to know them better, I kind of realized, oh, they're actually in a position to like do this for themselves. They just chose not to, and they kind of took advantage of our charity a little bit. And that the same thing, I'm like, man, that just sucks. Like, not that they didn't deserve our service, but kind of like they took advantage of it. So I have felt that as well. And honestly, like, I don't worry about that. I stopped trying to. Another trap people fall into is like, well, what's the effect of the value that I'm creating? Like, I want to quantify it. And I also don't fault people for thinking like, how does this actually benefit me? Like,
sure,
we live in a world where you get compensated for value, and it's not a problem for people to expect that. But a lot of times there's a trap with that where it's like, okay, I can't see a connection between the value I'm creating and how it benefits me in the short term or long term. And so I'm not going to create the value, or I can't determine definitively the impact that my attempt to create value will make. So I'm not going to create the value. And I let go of those things a long time ago. And it's just kind of like, I'll just create as much value as I possibly can, and people will do with it what they will.
Interesting.
I don't know who will use it and who won't. You know, I've had reps that I've poured hundreds of hours into mentoring and coaching, like, and I know where they're at in life, and they're not utilizing any of it, you know?
Interesting.
And so for me, I'm like, that was the biggest waste of my time. Like, their life is no better because of that time and energy that I spent. But I don't have a magic 8 ball to know who will and who won't. And so I just kind of give freely with the value and hope that it's impactful and meaningful to someone, and ideally as many people as possible.
Wow, that's a really powerful idea. So we've already established that we've done the numbers. You might have positively affected tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
And there might be another couple hundred of people who you tried to help who didn't fully accept the help or didn't take advantage of it. How do you not get jaded? How do you not get pessimistic? You said you let go of those things a long time ago. What does that mean, and how did you do that?
Well, there's a good book that we actually did in our Sunday book club called The Gap and the Gain. Zach Hall talked about it, and basically the book just says your contentment and happiness in life is kind of just determined by what you focus on. In any situation, you can focus on the good or the bad, the gap or the gain. And so, you know, I just kind of have, like, you could call it failure amnesia, or like I just don't think or dwell on the ones that wasted my time. I think about the ones whose lives were changed because of it. So, you know, I get stoked if there's just one person, you know,
really?
if there's one person that's like, you changed my life, then I'm like, all right, cool.
That was worth it.
It was worth it. Yeah.
Wow. So I think this reminds me a little bit of an experience I had. So my mom is an incredibly compassionate lady. And we were out, like, I lived in Salt Lake. I was going to the U, and she came and visited me. We went to lunch, and this woman came up to her and was like, "Hey, the classic, I don't have any gas. My car's far away. Can I have money for gas?" In my mind, I'm like, "Get out of here!" Like, this is just I could discern this so fast. And my mom was like, "Yeah, like, how much money do you need?" And she was like, "Oh, like $20," and she gave her like 50 or something.
Yeah.
And anyway, she was super grateful when she left, and I'm like, "Mom, you know, she just took advantage of you."
Yeah.
And she was like, "Well, you know, it's our job to help. It's not my job to see what she does with it."
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's a thinker, because I like to think about the net impact. Was it net positive or net negative? And maybe that's too engineering of a way to think of it.
You can't figure that out on an individual basis. So if you look at it holistically, if you just create as much value as you possibly can for as many people as you possibly can, things are going to work out great, and you'll wind up being net positive overall.
That's a really cool idea. I like that idea. Trying to create as much value as you can.
Yeah.
Always. So let me make sure I'm getting through all my questions.
Yeah.
So my last question, I think, and this is along the lines of what we kind of talked about, the theme of like optimism, hope, pessimism, creating value, being stoked.
Yeah.
So, and it might be an odd one. How long do you think humanity will last? How long will the United States last? Are you optimistic or are you pessimistic? In a world, especially of social media and divisiveness, it's easy to fall into the trap of things aren't looking that good.
Yeah.
There's evidence to suggest why, but I'm curious, where do you lie?
I think we're fine. Like, I think every generation has thought that the up and coming generation was like just the worst, you know? And I think every, generation thought the future was the bleakest that it's ever been. But despite those perspectives over the last century, like overarchingly, society has gotten better. Quality of life has gotten better. The world overall is a better place. So I think social media highlights a lot of our differences. But I think if you just analyze it logically, we're fine. Like, fundamentally, people are good. Two people can have the same intention. They both love their kids. They both want what's best for them. But logically, they arrive at very different ideologies or paths of how to accomplish that. And so sometimes we focus on that instead of just, the shared intention. But I'm stoked about the future.
I'm stoked about the future. That's probably the best.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it.
Like I get jealous. I'm like, man, I was riding with Rilo. I got her a dirt bike. I'm like, man, you're so lucky. Like when you're a young adult, all these toys are gonna be electric. You're gonna have like electric boats, electric planes. I bet they're gonna have like drones that you can fly on. Have you seen those, like the little drone cars?
No.
Oh, I'm like, man, there's gonna be so like way cooler toys and way cooler hobbies when you're a young adult than me. So like, I get stoked about her future because she's gonna get to like fly around in a drone car,
Yeah. The inventions are definitely gonna be really cool.
That's the stuff I think about.
So, okay, help me like bridge the gap between two ideas that I think we both share. One is we're both religious, and so we're Christian, and this idea that like Christ comes back.
Yeah.
That things get bad, the world degenerates, and Christ comes back.
Yeah.
But also like what you described, like the poverty rate across the world is dropping. There's more education. The climate is not doing that great, but the hope is like we can get to Mars, maybe.
Yeah, I'm
we
down.
can fix some things. So like how do we bridge the gap between those two ideas? Like, can they coexist? Things are going to get better, but religiously they're supposed to get worse. I don't know. I've never been able to fully connect them. I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Well, I just think, in maybe to clarify what we're talking about, like I think those are two different things. My internal reality, my peace, my happiness, how stoked I am, and what's going on in the world around me.
Yeah.
I believe those are fundamentally two separate things.
Oh, okay.
And can be opposite. So there's a really cool story about the London bombings during Winston Churchill's time, where Hitler was like, we're going to win this thing just by bombing England over and over and over and over again. And they're going to be so psychologically destroyed from the bombing that they're just going to say, we give up, stop. Like, we will do anything, we surrender, just stop bombing us. And at first, the London citizens were like terrified by the bombings. It was the worst experience ever. But the bombings just kept happening. And all of a sudden, there was this moment where they kind of realized life's going on. Like, we're still eating breakfast with our family while bombs are going off. We're still having tea. We're still going to work. Like, and they got to this place where they just kind of adapted and were like, I'm not going to say super happy because your city's getting bombed, but like there was this separation between their internal like mood and emotional state and everything and what was happening around them. So I think, what's my optimism for the future? Sure, I think things could get worse. War could increase. Poverty could increase. We could lose freedoms, but like ultimately we still will have the total control over our peace, our happiness, everything like that. So I don't see it as like a contradiction. I see those two things as being able to exist together.
That's a really, really good point and a really cool idea that even though things can get worse, even if you're bombed, you can still be with your family.
Yeah.
You can still have the things that matter.
Yeah.
And so, come what may, things can and will work out.
Yeah. So the world may get way worse, but I'm still stoked.
The world may get way worse, but I'm still stoked.
Yeah. I'll just get another dirt bike.
They can't hit you with the bomb if you're on a dirt bike.
Yeah. Try and bomb me. I dare you.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Well, I think that's like a perfect quote to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So thank you. I feel like I learned a lot. I think there's a lot of really, really phenomenal ideas to take away about creating value, about always being stoked, about serving others. So thank you for
thank you, man.
This.
Yeah, this was awesome. Appreciate it.
And a quick message from our sponsors.